Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is February 11th, and right now we're looking at the combination of Doppler radars with the visible satellite imagery. You can see the frontal system swinging through here in a fairly weak low pressure, but we've got some moderate precip moving across Kitsap Peninsula as I'm speaking, moving into some of the Puget Sound area here, and this low is going to track right over the area, continuing some showers on in through the day tomorrow. We'll dive into those details, and we'll take a look at the extended forecast here as we've got some colder air that's going to try to take a shot at the Pacific Northwest, and we'll show you what's behind that here in a moment. You can see this is a sneaker wave threat. You can kind of see where National Weather Service Portland ends and where Seattle begins. I wish they would kind of correlate this because you could probably put that threat up the Washington coastline as well. Taking a look at the potential for snowy Monday AM commute here for the National Weather Service Spokane. You can see some of I-90 here. Of course, better chance to cross Highway 2 a little bit further north, but you can see the temperatures are going to be kind of marginal here. However, heavier precipitation rates may drive the snow levels down near towards the valley floors, and the greatest uncertainty, of course, is in the lower elevations. This is looking at that official forecasting. You see Highway 2, a little better chances, and not much for Ellensburg, Moses Lake, or Ritzville. You might see some there for Spokane, but better chances, of course, across a higher terrain of Idaho and for Washington as well. They call for 68 for Snoqualmie, but I'll share what the European is saying on that here in a moment. Now, if you guys want a nice, affordable home weather station to record all this crazy weather we get here in the Pacific Northwest, click on that link down below to save 10% off. The smartphone app is great. Builds its own little forecast for you. You can click on any one of these parameters here and get some cool graphs and whatnot. And it updates nonstop, 3 seconds. You can just check your phone whenever you want and see how the wind is blowing at your house. Taking a look at the North American model, high resolution. We put this into motion. You can see the off and on kind of shower activity here going on in through the day to day. You might even get a sunbreak out there, but still quite a bit of shower activity around, and you can see the low pressure system kick through as we go towards tomorrow morning, kind of hanging out for some of the Cascades here and maybe across some of this northern Puget Sound here as we go through Monday afternoon for that finally wanes, and then we wait for that cold air to try to take a shot here at the Pacific Northwest. More on that here in a moment. This is looking at accumulated positive snow depth change in inches on the European as of last night, and you can see we get some better amounts across some of British Columbia here, a little bit across the Olympics. Northern Cascades and Central may be targeted a bit better here as well. You can see Snoqualmie Pass not doing too hot on the most recent European. Calls for 1.4 inches, better amounts across Stevens and the North Cascades and British Columbia. However, and you can see where Mount Rainier is. You don't have to worry about commuting across that area. It's pretty high terrain there. And you can see this next system here, the system we're going through now, doesn't bring much snow potential for the Oregon Cascades. That will probably change, though, coming up, because we're going to have a system that's going to slide by to the south, and that could bring some additional snow chances. You can kind of see that right at the end of last night's European run. So fingers crossed for that one. Looking at some of the snow levels, you can see this morning initially Snoqualmie passed 3,000, but it goes up above pass level here until we get back towards Monday morning here. So that's why you're not expecting the big accumulations for the most part across Snoqualmie. But of course, Stevens Pass is higher, 4,000 feet, and it stays at or below pass level all the way on through Monday afternoon. Now, looking at the wider view of things here, we've got British Columbia, Washington. We're going to take a look at this system that's rolling through today there, and then the ridge builds. And we get this north flow, and this polar lobe tries to take a swing at us here and drops off a little bit of cold air. And then there's a system coming in right underneath that polar lobe that's going to try to bring some snowfall. And it could even bring some lower elevation snowfall on the north side of that low pressure center. But the models have been having some difficult time at trying to place that low pressure center, which is to be expected right now. And I'll show you here in the weather model maps in a moment, but let me look at this one first. 850 millibars, 5,000 feet, European. You can see this is not really a dynamic Arctic air blast by any stretch of the imagination. You see some of this cooler air trying to leak out into British Columbia and Washington. The bulk of it kind of stays east of the Rocky Mountains, which is to be expected here. But again, if we line up a low pressure center just right and we get some dynamic cooling on the north side of that low and some heavy precipitation rates, we could bring some snow levels down into the lower elevations, let's just call it. Here is yesterday afternoon's European run. So I want to show you this here really quick. There goes our system. Showers continue on into tomorrow afternoon. And then check it out. It brings a system right into Oregon here. And you see on the north side of it, that snow level gets pretty low there. Some slushy, wet snow might get down to some of the lower elevations with that. And the model's been waffling back and forth on just how far this low pressure center is going to come in. Or impulse. I mean, you can't even really call it a low pressure center. It's just such a weak impulse there. And I don't know if that's going to get it done to bring some lower elevation snowfall. The GFS says something different. So we'll look at that here in a moment. starting now actually. This is the 12Z GFS hot off the presses. There goes our system today and tomorrow. Then we get the ridging, we get the north flow, tries to take its swing at us with some cooler air, and the GFS brings a system a little bit stronger low and pretty quickly back into the Pacific Northwest there. And I'll show you what that means on the actual 6-hour precipitation map here in a moment. But I want to show you here at 10,000 feet also, you can see the cold air bobbing and moving around, and you want some of this here down in your area if you want some lower elevation snowfall. And you can see it try to take its weak shot here in the Pacific Northwest. And again, if things line up just right, you might get some snow on the north side of that low. Now let's take a look at what the GFS is saying about that. And I've got the North American model also here on the right. These are both hot off the presses. This is the storm system going through today. Kicks off to the east. You can see the residual showers wrapping up as we go through tomorrow. And then we get some of this cold air. You can kind of see the gradient here. And so we're going to get a little bit of cold air trying to leak out here from British Columbia down into western Washington. Then the next low pressure center comes in here. And you can see the GFS kind of a little snowy solution here. But again, it would be pretty marginal temperature-wise here also at the surface. You're going to need some dynamic cooling with that. And you see the North American model much further south as was the European model here. And that's as far as this one goes, 84 hours, the North American. But you can see the GFS with the much stronger low pressure system off the coastline there. And so we take this GFS right now with the grain of salt. The North American and the European model are not showing this getting up towards Seattle. National blended models here, total precipitation in inches, and let me put this into motion. You can kind of see as we go on in through Monday afternoon, maybe 1/4 inch for Seattle, lesser amounts for Portland, Willamette Valley. The bigger amounts are going to be across some of the mountainous areas, which is usually the case. But if we look off into the future a little bit more, then we bring some additional storm systems that are going to be targeting California at times, but they may include Oregon also here. So maybe we can build up some nice snowfall across some of the Oregon Cascades with some of these storm systems, but the storm track mainly pointed at California. As you see, we go all the way out towards February 21st and still under 1/2 inch for Seattle on the latest national blended models, better amounts south and across the higher terrain. This is looking at the European. So this is yesterday afternoon's run here. We're going to look way off into the extended. There's our weak swing with the polar lobe. Ridge hangs out. Storm systems into California. And then some of the models in the extended have been showing some interesting dances with the polar lobes here, trying to stay across some of Western Canada. So you may see some of that in some of the hype postings on social media. It's way out there and way too early to even start getting caught up in any of those details right now. But we'll continue to watch it and break it down day by day. This is looking at the avalanche danger. There is some considerable here, west slopes of the Central and North Cascades. And percent of average precipitation since the water year began October 1st. You can see some of western Washington is notably below average here, but some areas are above, and you can kind of see that out there, kind of a mixed bag, but the below average kind of wins out here across much of the Pacific Northwest. If we look at average temperature departure from average, you can see much of the west. This takes into account all of that Arctic air, and you can kind of see even including that very cold period, we are still above average across much of the Pacific Northwest. A few areas, small areas, are slightly below average. This goes from December 13th through February 10th. This is temperature departure from average from October 1st, and you can see much of the west kind of uniformly above average in some 2 to 4 degree in the orange there, and the 4 to 6 there, kind of showing up across some of Oregon there, and the North Washington Cascades kind of. We look at the drought monitor, though. We're doing fairly well. Some abnormal dry across the Cascades, little slivers of a moderate drought in there, so nothing to be concerned about across Washington or Oregon. You can see there is some severe drought across Idaho and Montana, however, right now. And so we'll watch that snow event. I don't even want to call it a snow event, but we'll watch that little event coming up here. Right now, the confidence is extremely low. Things would have to line up just right. And still, you're probably not talking about a very dynamic snowstorm that does get on the north side of that low as of right now. I mean, if that does set up over Seattle, it would probably be a wet, slushy mess that wouldn't properly stick on the roadways to make, it wouldn't be like sheets of ice on the roadway or anything of that nature. But we'll watch that coming up here over the next couple days, and we'll kind of see if the models start to come to some kind of agreement. As you saw, the GFS continues to show some snowfall across western Washington, but the European was including Portland at times here, and we'll see how that develops. It's not worth getting too excited about just yet. A very fringe setup, meteorologically speaking, here as far as winter precipitation here west of the Cascades. But anyway, we'll continue to watch that day by day. Hope you guys are liking these videos. We'll do this again tomorrow, and I will talk to you guys then.